We are back. Welcome back to Weather for Weather Geeks, everyone. It's the first edition of this video of 2025. We've taken a break, about 2 weeks worth of a break from this video. Of course, over the holidays, I had a lot of time off around Christmas and New Year's. Hope you and yours had a good holiday season. The weather has certainly gotten pretty busy as we flip the calendar to 2025, right on schedule. A colder, stormier pattern is taking shape, and, I think this cold pattern has some real staying power for the month of January. It's looking more and more like a lock that January is going to be our coldest in at least a few years, and our coldest month compared to the average in about a year and a half, at least. So we'll talk more about the longer range, of course, later in the video and in future editions of Weather for Weather Geeks. But in the meantime, we got grazed as expected by this major winter storm over the last 24 hours. This brought some really hefty amounts of snow to southern Ohio, parts of West Virginia, and even out into, these really snow-starved locations that have had even less snow than we've had over the last few winters. That includes the nation's capital. That includes Baltimore. Some double-digit snowfall totals in northern Virginia and overall in parts of the Delmarva Peninsula. Here in our TV viewing area, it was pretty common to pick up 1.5 inches, even close to 2 inches or so worth of snow this morning. Officially 1 inch at the airport. That amount sounds a little low to me, actually. A lot of times the airport numbers are, frankly, kind of inflated, but this 1 inch amount at the airport seems maybe a little on the low side first thing this morning, but nonetheless, 1 to locally 2.5 inches, pretty common from this kind of grazing that we got from that overnight snow. Now, as of 7:11 p.m., we still have a little bit of snow on the radar. It's just kind of a few flurries, but when it's this cold, every flake can stick. So this is providing some fresh dustings as it continues drifting off to the south. We saw a little bit of a dusting on 422 on our camera up there across from Eastwood Mall during the 6 o'clock hour, and I suspect some neighborhoods are picking up a dusting around Boardman right now, down to Columbiana and Lisbon as well. We'll be kind of then in between snow bands for a lot of the rest of the evening until the overnight when some lake effect will get going once again. We'll talk about that here momentarily. In the meantime, they're not quite done with the snow just yet along the eastern seaboard. The center of low pressure now well off to our east, but still some snow falling in a lot of Virginia, Maryland, parts of Delaware, New Jersey, southeastern Pennsylvania as well. The official numbers at the airport, as I mentioned, 1 inch worth of snow as of the issuance of the climate report at about 5:30 this afternoon. That puts us above average by 3.9 inches for the month. Now, for the season, we're still running a little behind average by about 2.5 inches because we didn't have very much snow, of course, during the first part of the winter season. We're starting to make up certainly some ground here in 2025. And, compared to last winter, it's a big change. In fact, the numbers are nice and even, just the way we like it. Exactly three times as much snow as we picked up through today's date last season. Through January the 6th last year, last winter, we had 7 inches. This winter season, 21 inches and counting at the airport. All right, so the lake effect machine is going to try to fire up tonight. Now, it's not going to be the most efficient lake effect event in the world, but there may be kind of a dominant band that develops off of Lake Huron, picks up some juice over Lake Erie, and starts to deposit some snow later on tonight, 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock a.m. over parts of northeast Ohio and northwest PA. Anyone who gets under this band, you can certainly pick up some fresh coatings, and maybe even you pick up 1 inch to 1.5 inches before the midday hours are through. When we look at the odds of 1 inch or more worth of snow out of this, I think they are highest up towards Orwell, Meadville, up into the, kind of the hilly terrain south of Erie, PA. The amounts are lower in our viewing area, but they're certainly not zero, especially, in areas north of I-80. And so we put out an official forecast like this for, again, this is late tonight through about lunchtime on Tuesday. Fresh coverings possible in a lot of places. Best chance of picking up 1 inch to 2 once you're over towards Sandy Lake, the I-79 corridor, eastern Mercer County, maybe an extreme northern Trumbull County up towards the Ashtabula line. Someone tries to get 1 inch to 1.5 inches worth of snow. So that's lake effect round number 1. Late tonight through midday on Tuesday. We'll spend the rest of Tuesday just under a blanket of clouds. What else is new? Maybe some late day clearing. But then this dash black line, that's a upper level disturbance. Not quite a cold front. It's trough of low pressure. This will activate the lakes once again tomorrow night. And I do think this, this lake effect tomorrow night can be kind of a sneaky little event. We're not looking at a lot of snow, but I could see where there's enough bands of lake effect that penetrate a little farther to the south than some lake effect events. I could see, some places picking up 1 inch or so worth of snow tomorrow night, tomorrow evening, Tuesday evening through the overnight hours, and then things will quiet down Wednesday with not much more than flurries around. And actually, we'll see a little bit of sunshine coming our way on Thursday, but actually the cold is going to peak later on this week with wind chills down in the single digits by Thursday morning. And Friday morning is going to be interesting. I could see where Friday morning, if the sky clears out enough, I could see where some local thermometers where you have a decent snowpack try to get down to 2 or 3 degrees above zero first thing Friday morning. It'll depend some on the cloud cover. If it stays cloudy over your location, you probably won't get that cold. All right, our next weather intrigue in terms of wintry precipitation locally looks like it'll come Friday night. This is the European model. And notice how far south some of this wintry weather on Friday will get. There could be some snow and ice concerns in Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and then heading up into parts of the Carolinas Friday afternoon into Friday night. And, this is kind of an open wave of low pressure depicted on a lot of the modeling for our region anyway. So I think it's going to snow Friday night. I think it's going to stick. I think we could see a couple or a few inches worth of snow, but a big event, no, because this is kind of a passing wave of low pressure, at least until it gets to the eastern seaboard. Now, the European model keeps it kind of as an open wave really all the way through this weekend. The GFS has a little bit of a different idea, not necessarily here locally. Still, it's some decent snow perhaps Friday night here locally, but then the GFS winds up a big low pressure system off the coast of Long Island on Saturday. This will be a big snow event for the Poconos and eastern PA, perhaps Philadelphia, perhaps New York City as well. They could be right on the rain-snow line, but you notice the stark differences in the forecast between the European model and the GFS model for a lot of big cities on Saturday. That's going to be an interesting forecast to follow. For around here, though, I don't think it matters all that much which model has the right idea ultimately. It's probably a couple or a few inches of snow Friday night, enough to certainly make things slick for Friday night and early Saturday. But yeah, this cold pattern, it really has some legs. Now, the intensity of the cold, I don't think it's anything all that noteworthy. We're not going to shatter January records. We're not going to see, some of the coldest weather we've ever had or anything like that. But the persistence of the cold is pretty impressive. This is the European ensemble modeling showing the next 2 weeks worth of temperatures. All the greens and blues, of course, are cooler than average temperatures. And notice they just don't go anywhere all the way through. This is the 21st. This is 2 weeks from now. You just don't see much of a pattern change. Now, I do think the pattern can change as we go into the month of February. And I would place my bet right now on February ending up as a milder than average month. It may not start that way, but I could see where it turns pretty mild by the 2nd and 3rd and 4th weeks of February. But until then, we seem to be pretty locked in to a pretty darn cold pattern. And, I think this is going to be a pretty impressive month in terms of the anomalies. Not necessarily because there'll be individual days where we are 25 degrees below average and, it's just, hideously cold, but because of the consistency and persistency of the cold pattern, I think we're going to rack up some pretty impressive numbers in terms of departures from average before the month is through. We'll talk more about the longer range in future editions of Weather for Weather Geeks. And coming up tomorrow evening, on Tuesday evening, we'll talk more about the lake effect snow threat for tomorrow night. Friday night system, we'll start taking a look at potential amounts in a little bit more detail when it comes to that Friday night system. And of course, we'll talk about the upcoming weekend with a little more detail as well. Hope you'll tune in then. In the meantime, welcome back to Weather for Weather Geeks. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you back here on Tuesday.